This week on Create, Consume, Repeat, I take a close look at Legend, a cult classic from visionary director Ridley Scott that's had a lasting impact on cinema and pop culture, so stay tuned. Long before we had gravity-defying elves, thrill-seeking whitewater rafting dwarves, and winter zombies, there was Legend, a fantasy film directed by Ridley Scott, starring a very young Tom Cruise as Jack, a child of the forest, Mia Sara as Lily, the princess that doesn't listen to anybody, and Tim Curry as Darkness, the best cinema rendition of Satan to date. If you're a fan of this channel, you may have already figured out that I love Ridley Scott. Few directors have had such an immense impact on the visual language of cinema. Not only did he change the horror genre with Alien, he brought to life a dystopian neo-noir future with Blade Runner and rebooted the sword and sandal genre with Gladiator. He was all about women empowerment in cinema long before it became a hot-button topic in Hollywood. Just look at Thelma and Louise, G.I. Jane, or Alan Ripley in Alien. And to those that would argue his success with Alien is partly due to the team Alejandro Jodorowsky assembled in making Dune, well, you're not entirely wrong, but that's a story for a different episode. Legend is often overlooked when looking at Ridley Scott's long career because it was a box office flop that to this day is blamed for the death of fantasy films up until Peter Jackson came along with the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Obviously, this would be one hell of a short episode if that were the end of this story. But like all Ridley Scott films, they require multiple viewings and time to digest and fully appreciate. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Legend is a masterpiece. In fact, it's deeply flawed and poorly edited. But even a weak film from the mind of Ridley Scott is better than most directors' best efforts. In the early 80s, most fantasy films were geared towards children. Think Neverending Story and Labyrinth, two of my favorite films. But coming off the heels of Alien and Blade Runner, Ridley looked to reinvent the fantasy genre by creating a Grimm's fairy tale fantasy filled with unicorns, dwarves, elves, trolls, imps, and fairies. Sure, some of the performances are cheesy, but one look at Darkness and you knew this was something darker and more serious in tone. Sadly, his fourth film would be besieged with problems, most notably a fire that consumed Pinewood Studios, the biggest film set in the world, before principal shooting even wrapped.
And the fireman said, "Is this yours?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I think you've lost it." And I said, "I think I have, mate."
Wow, nightmare shit. And if that weren't enough, a terrible screening at the Directors Guild of America rattled Ridley's confidence in the film, causing him to recut the film, hacking away roughly 60 minutes. No wonder the American release was so incomprehensible. Oh, that's right, I forgot to mention that Legend actually has 4 different cuts: an American, a European, a television, and of course, the director's cut, which is arguably the best cut. With one notable exception, the score. But we'll talk about that later. Despite these major setbacks and not meeting box office expectations, the film slowly but surely found its audience and would go on to become a huge cult classic because of Ridley's artistic vision, Alex Thompson's cinematography, and Rob Bottin's special effects makeup that has stood the test of time. It is incredible. And for those in the audience unfamiliar with Bottin's work, well, think The Howling, Thing, RoboCop, and Total Recall. Yet it's in my humble opinion that Darkness is the best work, a marvel of makeup and engineering. Look at those friggin' horns and those satyr legs. I mean, God, it's so good. Add in Tim Curry's pitch-perfect performance and you have a nightmare fully realized.
The dreams of youth are the regrets of maturity. Dreams are my speciality.
Listen to how he delivers those lines. He just relishes them and makes them sound so cool and scary. Yet Bottin's magic extends to all the fantasy characters, most notably Blix, who looks like Keith Richards, and my other fave, Meg Mucklebones, both astonishing to behold. No look back at Legend would be complete without discussing the score. It's a polarizing topic to say the least. Ridley's first choice was a score by Jerry Goldsmith that is a classically inspired fantasy score interspersed with oddly modern flourishes. Think flutes, horns, chimes, and choir voices interrupted with a bolt of synth. It's kind of cool, actually. But as I mentioned earlier, the screening that caused him to recut forced Ridley to ask Tangerine Dream to rescore the American cut. But even that score was altered to include a song by John Anderson of Yes and an ending song by Brian Ferry. And I mean, this soundtrack is amazing. I mean, it is just wow. So what's the big deal? Well, this is one of those rare instances where the original score, albeit amazing, feels safe in comparison to Tangerine Dream's atmospheric electronic soundscapes. It's a fucking masterpiece that still sounds amazing today, and it's in heavy rotation on my iPhone. And if you haven't heard it, literally, you owe it to yourself to track down a copy. It's that good. Agree, disagree, love it, hate it. I want to know what you're thinking. Tell me what's on your mind. Yes, I said that. And don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button so I can keep banging out these episodes for you guys. Because, as you know, I love making them. So see you next time. Peace.